Good evening, I'm Amadin Ogbewe. Now tonight we will continue on our series here on Kaftan TV, the presidential series, where we bring to you the various candidates of the different parties vying for the highest office in the land. Tonight I'm joined by the presidential candidate of the National Rescue Movement, Reverend Felix Osakwe. He speaks to me about his plans for this country and his vision and his pathway to Aso Rock. All right, Reverend Osakwe, welcome to Top Talk.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. All right, let's start with something very basic.
Yes.
Why do you want to be president of Nigeria?
That's a very nice question, but maybe a little bit of me before I answer that question. Like you rightly said, I'm a Reverend and Felix Johnson Osakwe from Delta States and Okwane Nation. That's where I actually came from. And so, getting the presidential candidate of National Rescue Movement. And I also want to believe that National Rescue Movement is one of the platform or one of the parties that has a very good structure in Nigeria, because we have 824 candidates. So that is a plus for anybody or any party. Now, so that's a very good party for me. And the reason why I am in this race, that's a question I'll often ask, that we have 18 presidential candidates. So the question is this: why are we vying for that office? Why do we want to become the next president of Nigeria? And that's a very good question. Today, what is happening in the country today is beyond recognitions. Today, I will not be making a mistake if I'm to say that Nigeria is already in coma. There's a serious problem going on in Nigeria. And we believe we have what it takes to make a change. We're expecting there's going to be a paradigm shift in Nigeria any moment from now, by the grace of God Almighty. And the time is now. And so one among other reasons why I want to run, or why I'm in this race, you can see what our youth is going through in this country. Maybe millions of them today, graduates, out of job, no job, nothing. They just roaming about all over the place. Some are into Okada riders and many other things. So we're looking for a way to lift our youths from where our leaders kept them to the next level. And so many other things. You look at the economy, you look at insecurity in Nigeria. So we believe and we know we have something to offer. And so that's the reason why I'm in the race.
That's fair enough. People always want to know, like you already said a little about yourself. They want to know who intends to lead them and why, they feel they have that capacity. There's always mention of track record and, antecedents. So what has prepared you for this role? People call it the hardest job in the country, so to speak. People go in there with, hair full of black hair, and they come out all white, or whitened. So, what has prepared you for the role?
Yeah, what has really prepared me is my experience. Again, having lived in the U.S. for about 30 years, by the grace of God, and also today, I'm an ambassador with the Universal Peace Federation, and that's even the heartbeat of the United Nations. I've been to so many countries, I've seen so many things, and having been around big politicians, and to some extent also work with them, so a lot of experience has been acquired before now. So, and again, what prepared a man for a certain vision is the revelation God has given to him, the ideology of how to do it and how to do it right. So those are the things that prepare the man. If you don't mind, I will borrow from what the Bible says, that without vision, everybody perish. So it's not all the leaders that has the vision of what to do to rescue this nation. And so the vision is there, and it's very clear where we're heading to, what to do, how to do it, and when to do it.
All right, now, that being said, let's head into the issues themselves. One of the biggest issues Nigeria is facing right now is insecurity.
Yes.
And we're, getting a new dimension. The president gave a deadline of December to his, his service chiefs and his security operatives that by December, they should have curbed basically insecurity to almost a nullity. Just the other day, we saw that about 30 persons were kidnapped at a train station in Edo State. And, we're still seeing different cases of insecurity. The deadline seems to not have been taken seriously enough, especially on the part of those who are outside the law. So what would you do now to, save Nigerians from this menace of insecurity?
Well, that's a big question, because that is the greatest problem in Nigeria today. And talking about deadline being given by the president or by Mr. President, that wasn't the first time. The former chief of army staffs gave deadlines severally. The president gave deadlines severally. And unfortunately, we have not been able to meet up. So, like you also said, that's like it has not been taken very serious. I think I believe you, and I want to agree with you. So for us, there are a few things we can do. I've once said that the first approach for me as the president of Nigeria, by the grace of God, I'm not going to start with bombing everybody, killing everyone. I'm actually going to start with a dialogue. And now some people said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. How do you dialogue with your enemies? Then the question we need to ask ourselves is this: were they enemies in the past? How did they suddenly become the enemies of this country? How do we suddenly start killing ourselves? And so we have to visit the root cause of this problem of insecurity in Nigeria. Address it first. And how do you address it? You address it through dialogue first. And I have two options as the president of Nigeria, by the grace of God, the commander-in-chief. Two options. We need to dialogue, and the other option, we cannot be ruled out as well. And so, if you not forget in a hurry, or let me even put it this way: how many Nigerians today that are a threat to our nation that will be killed? Let me start with this. We have the Boko Harams. I believe they're in thousands. We have the Fulani Elsmen. Many of them, the terrorists among them, they are in thousands. You have the bandits. They are in thousands. Then you move to east. You have the ECN, the IPOB. They are in thousands. You move to the south. You talk about the militants, Niger Delta militants. They are in thousands. You move to the southwest. Now you begin to talk about those who want to do, and at a point you remember what happened in the past. There's no guarantee that they are not going to surface again. They are in thousands. What about the NSAS? Are they coming back again? We can't rule that out in a hurry. So how many Nigerians, as a commander-in-chief, the president of Nigeria, how many of them are we going to kill before we are secured in our country? So for me, I think the first thing is to dialogue with them. And if you will not also forget, a few years back, maybe about 6 years ago, when Mr. President became, President Buhari, if I'm not mistaken, maybe during the time of Jonathan Goodluck or President Buhari, you remember that President Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president, actually traveled to Borno, and quote unquote, they had to go and meet with the Boko Harams. The question is this: the ones that are kidnapping, the ones that are killing, are they the ones doing the job? Of course, no. They are just agents. So if I'm talking about dialogue, I really mean what I'm talking about. So we're not talking about dialoguing with those guys carrying AK-47. They are being sent. They are just an agent. You see, Baba Obasanjo went there, and in the end, he said there will be need to discuss with these guys. And I will also not forget in a hurry, when the former governor of Kaduna State, in person of Senator Ahmed McAlfee, there was a major problem in Kaduna State. That is exactly what we are going through in Nigeria today. That was what was happening in Kaduna then. You know what he did? He had to invite the religious leaders, Christians and the Muslims, brought all of them together, had to dialogue among them, have them to sign. I think he's the first person, in my own view, I might be wrong, this peace accord that we normally say, I think McAfee started it. In Kaduna, you have the Muslims and the Christians, the pastors, the bishops and the imams to sign that we are going to live in peace. And that goes a long way. So if I'm talking about dialogue, it will go a long way if we bring the religious leaders from the Christian and the Muslims. I don't think it's enough to start condemning cursing and cursing and cursing. If I'm president, I'm talking about what I would do. So if you bring the religious leaders, the traditional rulers from the south, the emirs, the obas, the ezes, bring all of them together with the religious leader. And I also said that the traditional rulers, if we bring them together, I think we can go a long way and we can achieve a lot without killing many people. So that's option number one. And we're also not going to rule it out in a hurry. That as the president of Nigeria, by the grace of God, I'm believing that we are going to have state police. It's non-negotiable. And for me, I've heard other candidates saying state police. And for me, it's even more than that. We are going to have community police. And we're going to have forestry police. By so doing, we'll be able to police our forests. And no intruders will just come into our forest and do whatever they want to do, camp there for months before they start their evil works. So definitely, the security is paramount. It's a priority in our list, and we'll do our best to make sure that Nigeria will be safe.
All right. Just to point out some few things. During the course of negotiations, how far are you willing to go? A lot of people feel as though they are the ones who are the victims in this situation. So you might be talking with a set of persons who are hell-bent on killing, and they feel that the reason they are doing it is because the government has given them no options, and they need remunerations before they drop their arms. How would you balance that, especially taking into account what the government has tried already with repentant bandits and terrorists, where we see that some of these repentant elements turn around to feed information to their members, and then it continues. And then also the issue of the victims, just as you mentioned, thousands of persons, perhaps not all together in the same group, NSAS are they are agitators for to end police brutality, so they are not actually part of that. So, but that being said, just like there are thousands of persons who are perpetrating insecurity, there are also much more who have been victims. So how do you speak to these persons when you tell them, I know this person has harmed you, but we want to talk with them? How do you calm those victims down who are agitated and pained and angry?
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. I think that question is simple, though difficult, because it's easier said than done. But then the former president Yar'Adua did it. If you will not forget in a hurry, all the past presidents of Nigeria, including the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, was unable to calm the situation in the Niger Delta, the militants. But when the former president Yar'Adua came on board, may his soul rest in perfect peace, you see what he did. For him to send the military and Air Force and say, go and bomb them, kill them, and destroy all of them, put them in jail, he refused to do that. What did he do to have actualized the peace we are enjoying today in the Niger Delta? Dialogue. And the vice president, his vice president then, the former president Goodluck Jonathan, and many others, including the former IG Okiro, they played a major role. It wasn't even Yar'Adua that was doing it. He had to assign people who knows exactly what to do, how to dialogue with these people, those who they can listen to. It wasn't Yar'Adua, but that was his initiative. And in the end, they did it successfully. They gave them some kind of grants, amnesty, and many other things. Before then, they might have killed some families, that the family members of the victim are not happy. But in the end, everybody come together. I believe we can do it again. If the former president Yar'Adua did it in the Niger Delta, then if you talk about kidnapping and all what we are seeing today, it was done in the Niger Delta, worse than anywhere in Nigeria. But he did it. So the same method, if we apply it today, it will work. Senator Ahmed McAfee, he did it in Kaduna. Today, if we apply the same method, it will work. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So I might not even be the one to do it, but we are going to initiate it in a very big way, maybe bigger than that of Yar'Adua, to make sure that we have peace in our country.
All right, that's fair enough.
But don't also forget the second option, yes, we can rule it out. But then, for me, this is the first thing that we should do.
I don't know if you can dwell on that second option. Some persons might not know what you are referring to.
Yeah, when you talk about second option, there are some persons who are evil, damans, they don't want to change. What do? Drop your arms. If you are we know you are the one sponsoring so people, enough is enough, and you said no, you will continue to destroy. And at this time around, it's not even about Christian alone. You are killing Muslims, you are killing innocent people, you are killing Christians, you are killing everybody. And we try to negotiate peace, and you said no. Of course, the second option is very much available. We will do, the military will advise better on what to do. Because I have so much faith in our military. In Nigeria, that's the truth. If only the government will allow them to do their job, we'll not be talking about what we're talking about today. So the options of the military might in Nigeria, because I have so much faith in them, we cannot rule it out in a hurry. So we have all options in our hands.
That's fair enough. Now let's move to another issue. There's also a big problem, the issue of poverty. The most recent report from the National Bureau of Statistics says that over 130 million Nigerians are living in multi-dimensional poverty. That's how it's put. What is your plan to, fix this situation, especially as it affects what we've already talked about, insecurity? The more people get impoverished, the more they find other means, to help themselves out. So what would be your master plan to lift as much Nigerians, if not any, at least this 130 million persons? What's your plan for them? What do you say to them?
Well, thank you. That's a question that one will have to really think deep before giving the answer. But like I said, once you are on assignment, especially if God is with you, then the vision of what to do will be given to you as well. Today, Nigeria is not poor. We are not poor. But like you rightly said, about 130 million persons are poor. So you can also say Nigerians are poor. But when you talk about the nation, Nigeria, we are not poor. So let me start by saying, I think our first problem is our leaders. Our leaders, by choice, have decided that they are going to suppress and oppress Nigerians, especially our youths. Nigerians, they believe that it's either you are poor or you are rich. In fact, it's not even about being rich anymore. It's that you are prosperity, you are prosper, and then what we can thank, this is real prosperity, or you are poor to the point that you will not be recognized at all. Those are the two categories of persons we have in Nigeria, and it shouldn't be so. There's no middle individuals in this country. Why? Because we have leaders that are wicked. If you will not forget, sorry, I will move a little bit from this answer. Before now, you see these politicians, especially those who have been in the office in the past, this is the time they will suddenly recognize the poor. They don't mind, I'm sure you know, during the election or a few months before the election, that is when they will go to the markets to eat with the market women. That is where they will go and eat with the poor, the almajiris. That is when they will drink kono with them. Before then, they will not be there. After that, the election, when they give them whatever little they want to give them to vote for them, they will never hear from them again. Some of our leaders are evil, but I can address that. See, there's difference between being a leader and a parent. What we lack in Nigeria is because our leaders do not act or behave as a parent. They are selfish. They are just a leader because a parent knows exactly what his household will need. You are here today by the grace of God because your parents care so much about you and they're able to have you to go to school. Otherwise, you will not be here today. Maybe you'll be riding Okada Keke Napep. This is the job of a parent. You see, but a leader, maybe where you are working out in office, your boss can just come and say, have you done the job? What have you done? They don't care about what happens to you, what you are doing and what you are not doing. I think that's the kind of leaders we have before now. Leaders that will believe that certain region is better than the other region, That is not the job of a parent. A parent, a leader, or the president of Nigeria must be a father to all Nigerians. Whether you are Igbo, you are Kanuri, you are Hausa, you are Fulani, you are whatever you are, it doesn't matter. A president, the president of Nigeria must see himself as the father of all. And you don't discriminate. A father will not think that, oh, I needed your vote and you did not vote for me. You will pay for it. Not only you and your entire state as the sitting governor, I lost election in your state, you will pay dearly for it. This is the kind of country we find ourselves. So what do? The poverty in Nigeria today seems to be intentional. God has blessed us so much with solid minerals. I've been to nations by the grace of God. I don't think there are too many countries that God has really blessed like Nigeria. Today we are talking about crude oil. What about the uranium in this country? In some part of the north. The uranium is even more expensive than crude oil. The leaders will never want to talk about it. What about gold and diamond? Must we even talk about electricity in Nigeria? In Enugu, the deposit of coals in Enugu alone can power not only in Nigeria, some part of West Africa inclusive, that we need not to even talk about light at all. The federal government sat on it. They will never allow the state to make use of the deposit of the blessings that God has given them in their states, all the way to the local governments. They did it in such a way that governors must come to Abuja to collect allocation by the end of the month. It's not how to cage them, police them, and so whatever blessing that has been given to them, they want to be in control. Look at Kaduna here, precious stones, rubies. Look at Kogi. Look at the steel in Kogi. The deposit of steel that we have in Kogi State here alone is almost the same size of the deposit of the steel we have in South Korea, and all the products in any house today you enter is the product from South Korea. From where? From the steel. They don't have crude oil, they don't have gold, they don't have diamond. So it's just our leaders that has put us where we are today. So what will we do is to allow each state to develop the solid minerals that God has given to them in their states. By so doing, they will create jobs. If you are from Benue, you need not to rush down to Abuja looking for a job. If you have gold in your local government, the federal government should allow them to bring investors and mine their gold for them, and before you know it, almost all the states in Nigeria will look like Dubai. So all that is happening today that we talk about poverty is intentional, so that they will rule over us. They will be able to oppress everybody, especially our youths. And that's why they kept on telling the youths, you have to wait, your time is not now. But I pray and I believe God Almighty that if we assume office as the president of Nigeria, I think the time of the youth is now. It's even overdue. So every deposit of solid minerals in each state, each local government, we will allow them to develop it, bring in investors. And before you know it, you don't have to go to Abuja or go to Lagos to look for a better job. No, right there in your state, right there in your local government, you have enough job. And by so doing, we are going to create a lot of jobs. And poverty becomes a thing of the past.
That's fair enough. What you described to an extent kind of looks like a resource control. And you also mentioned in where you're talking about insecurity, state policing. So it seems as though you favor a restructured Nigeria, where the states can also fend for themselves. How would you achieve that? Are you hoping on the National Assembly to join hands with you to achieve that goal?
Yeah, you see, if you talk about restructuring, it depends on the interpretation. It's all about individual. To some persons, they believe that restructuring this country is like we are trying to divide the country. And that's what some people will think, and that's what they believe. I think if you want to even talk about restructuring, I think the first what we need to restructure first is our mind. Okay, if you cannot restructure your mind, then you are going nowhere. It doesn't matter the benefits, the opportunities around you, is the same thing. And so we restructure our mind. And you talk about the National Assembly, fine. I believe they have families all over the country that is going through the same thing. So if this will benefit us as a Nigerian or as Nigerians, I believe the National Assembly will agree and will work together to make sure that we are not dividing the country. We are not saying one state is better than the other. All we are saying, whatever you have, make use of it, develop it, and create jobs. I don't think the National Assembly will say, no, that will never happen.
Wow. That's interesting. Let's now talk about, how some of these things can be achieved in terms of funding, because one issue that government, has or puts out to people is that, there's no money. You can't do so much. In the recent budget, you saw a lot of, there was deficit and, had to use different means, borrowing ways and means to buff it up so that it can be something. And now we're actually spending over 100% of the revenue, what we generate to service debts, not even to pay it back, to service the debt. So it seems if you should become president come May 2023, you're going to be coming into, I think, last I checked, about 77 trillion naira debt. How do you intend to, not be tied down by that weight and actually achieve some of the things you've said here when there seems to be no money or, you have to borrow so much?
Yes, you see, borrowing is not a crime. Borrowing is not a sin. Let me give you this as an example. I told you I've been in the US for so many years. And most times they even encourage individuals to borrow by saying, use your card as a credit card. Even you receive mails in your house whereby they will tell you, oh, we can borrow you up to $5,000, all kind of thing. They allow you to buy your car. Not that you are going to pay everything, even your home, houses. And also borrowing is not a crime. But it is a crime when you borrow and you don't want to pay. It becomes a crime. So if you borrow money to develop your country, that is not a crime. But the thing is this, why are we going to be borrowing and continue to borrow? And like I talked about the solid minerals, what is the problem? Why can't we develop what we have? Okay, the question is this. If they are going to investigate all the money that we have borrowed, I think many people will go to jail because they might not be able to give account of all the money that has been borrowed. That is the kind of system that we are in. Our system is not just working. But in the system that is working, borrowing is not a crime. You borrow, you pay back. That means you'll be having a good credit. But once you borrow, you can't pay back, then you are in a bad shape. So again, we have all it takes in Nigeria that even when we borrow, we can develop what we have and pay back the money that has been borrowed. So having said that, I think in our order as the president of Nigeria, we allow, again, each state all the way to the local governments to make use of the deposits that God has given to them. Develop it, bring in investors, and make much more money. And by so doing, even if we are going to borrow, it's not going to be much anymore.
Right, but do you have plans to actually start paying back those debts? Because some other candidates are already saying that they would want it to be written off, for one reason or another. It seems as though something you were not involved in, suddenly the burden is now on you. Would you try to get
I think that is their own opinion. In my own opinion, I don't think I would do it differently. Even if you are going to ask somebody to let go your debts or forgive, like what President Obasanjo did during his own time, it's not a yardstick for everybody to say, if I'm the president, or because President Obasanjo, the former president, did it, I'm going to do the same thing. We borrowed this money, we are not going to pay it. That is wickedness. At least we can pay. If we are to also negotiate with them, all right, we are owing you 10 naira. Is there any way we can pay 5 naira? All right, you can pay 5 naira. Okay, this 5 naira, can we pay it in 3 or 4 years? You understand what I'm saying? So yes, for me, we can negotiate with them. If some of this debt can be forgiven, to God be the glory. But then, in my head, I believe we should do everything we can to begin to pay back the money gradually.
All right, that's fair enough. Let's talk now about, full subsidy. You mentioned something about why why isn't the countries or the governments simply making use of these resources that we have? And we know that one of the prime or the most obvious resource that Nigeria has is crude oil. And yet that sector is having issues, especially because even though we've been having record high for some period of time, record high prices for oil, it has adversely affected Nigeria. Whereas other nations that produce oil, they're all smiling right now. And what is attributed to this most of the time is fuel subsidy. So now, what is your plan for it? You know, and just before you answer the question, I'll just put to you an analogy that someone has used. Someone once painted subsidy as a very special policy because it helps some who are corrupt. It feeds them. Those who are the higher ups, you know, they are enjoying from it. And the common man also sees it as something that reduces, you know, prices and fluctuation of inflation and all that for them. So at the same time, it's something that the elites, who the cabals, so to speak, love, and also the common man loves. So any president who says it's going, might not be a very popular president because it might end up annoying both of these varying demographies. So how do you handle such a special issue?
Well, as a president of Nigeria, the first thing is this. Are we there to please men? Are we there to please the elites? Or we are there to do the right thing for common man in Nigeria to wake up tomorrow and say, thank God I'm a Nigerian. For our youths to wake up tomorrow and say, thank God there's no need for me to leave my country. Why not we do all we can that youths from other countries want to even come to Nigeria? After all, Nigeria happens to be the pride of Africa. I believe so. And I know it will come back again. So when you talk about subsidy, for me as the president of Nigeria, the first thing I would do is to get some kind of consultants. You see, whatever that is hot, it was cold before. If you see hot water, it was cold before. Maybe when you boil it, then it becomes very hot. Now, this problem of subsidy, how does it all started? Who started it? Who are the people? Why? What do they stand to achieve? What have they achieved? How does it benefit the country? So those are the questions we need to ask. We will not only ask, we investigate it. Now, the other thing is this. What are we why the subsidy? How come that we cannot have our own refinery working in Nigeria? Corruption. Why is it that we lift our crude oil, maybe from the US, or it doesn't matter which are from whatever country that they come from. They took our crude oil, 1 million barrels, for example. Maybe what they bought it for is for $60 million, for example, 1 million barrels. They take it back to their country, refine it, sell it back to us for about $120 million. Why? Because the leaders up there, they have their own commission each time they lift crude oil, and anytime it's being refined, and they brought it back to Nigeria. And I'm talking about subsidy. What is wrong with us? Like you rightly said, other countries with oil, they smile, they are happy. Even see Libya in the past when Gaddafi was there. So how come that in Nigeria, we are weeping every day? What is our problem? Why can't we put up a refinery? So as the president of Nigeria, by the help of God Almighty, we'll make sure that our refinery will work. But before then, can I just wake up tomorrow, maybe in less than 100 days in the office, I will say, no, subsidy is gone forever. I won't do that. It's going to affect everybody. So before we will completely eradicate or take away subsidy, we'll make sure that our refinery is up and running.
How long would that take, though?
No, it depends. Some refineries takes 2 years, though. But if you want to bring a refurbished refinery, which is not too bad, you can bring it, refurbished one. No, within a year, they can refurbish a refinery and bring it here and sell it in Nigeria. But it depends if that is what you want. But a brand new refinery, you can even have some within 2 years. So that period of time, you can't just get up and say, okay, there's no more subsidy. You allow it, but gradually you begin to phase it out. So once our refineries is working, then subsidy becomes a thing of the past, and we'll be able to buy our petrol at the gas station very cheap.
Well, that's fair enough. That seems like a plan, especially because you plan to phase it out. Although President Muhammadu Buhari's budget for subsidy ends in June, but then again, that will be up to if you should come to power as the next president. Now, let's move over to another issue now. Generally speaking, you've already exposed some of your plans to me here, but you know, Nigerians and people generally, politics, people like to have a document or something they can go back to check, and you know, so that when you, or if you should come into power, they can say, well, you've not done this, or yeah, but when are you going to do this? So do you have a manifesto out, or should Nigerians be expecting that?
Yes, we have a manifesto, and we are going to unveil it any month from now. That we do.
Right. So what about your campaign in general? You know, what can we
you see
updates about?
Yes, our campaign. Like I said to you, our party is one of the greatest parties in Nigeria. Nigerians might not know this, but this is nothing but the truth. And another good thing about party is that almost all the candidates in Nigeria have never stolen money before. Never. And you can ask me why. The difference is clear. And those campaigning everywhere, all the way from House of Rep to senatorial and the governorship and presidential candidates, you will know those who have gotten involved in certain things. But in NRM, that's National Rescue Movement, I've just told you that you can even verify with INEC that we have 824 candidates. They are doing their job. The method of our campaign is not the normal way of campaigning, where you throw money at people and deceive them with Maggi, Gari, and beans and 2,000 naira. We want Nigerians to believe in what we can do. We want to prove to Nigerians that we are real. And also, we do not have the kind of money that some of the candidates today that are throwing all over the place, indirectly even oppressing the oppressor more and more by deceiving them and giving them a token that will not even last them for a day. And that's all you are giving them to wait for another 4 years. In national rescue movements, that isn't our method. We are consistent in what we are doing. All we do today, we move from one house to the other, the grassroots, making them to know that we have really come to rescue Nigeria. We have not come to deceive anybody, like what we have seen in the past. So that campaign is ongoing. And let me also say this to you. I'm sure you have seen the flame of fire before, and you have seen the coal of fire before. The flame of fire, from the distance, you can see the fire all over the place, some smoke. But the coal of fire, and that one most times cannot even cook any food, and the food will not be well done. But when you see the coal of fire, you might not see from the distance, but my brother is working. By the time you carry whatever you want to cook and put it on top of that fire, it will cook again and again and again. The flame of fire doesn't last. It's the coal of fire that lasts. So we are doing the job we're supposed to do in NRM. So some people, because they are expecting us to do what others are doing, or the method or the pattern that we are used to, but we are doing it differently from others. So we're doing the needful, and I can assure you, Nigerians, they are aware, and before the election, they will get to know more about us. So we are starting from the grassroots. We are coming up. So before you know it, we are going to be all over the place in the media. Before now, we are not always on TV, and that doesn't mean we are not saying anything. A TV is more or less like a noise, which is a good one, at least to create awareness. But the people that we vote, tomorrow, it's possible to be shouting, oh, Reverend Felix Osakwe, Reverend Felix Osakwe, NRM, NRM, NRM. Many of them has PVC to vote. Go to the grassroots, they have it. They know exactly what we're doing. Are we going to use media like no man's? Of course we are going to do that. Have we started? Of course we have started now, but before now, that wasn't our method. So we have our own pattern that's a little bit different from others. We are coming up, and we'll be there by the grace of God.
That's fair enough. But one thing I think people usually have questions for a party like yours, that's not, like you said, using the methods that others use, is that, what about the experience, And they always want to know, for instance, if you have to name your cabinet today, where would these persons come from? I know you were a presidential candidate in the past, in 2019, but then people still say, okay, you've not been in the deep, politics, thereabouts. So the question now is, what do you say to people when they say, you seem to be new, and you've not been in government before, so why should we give you a chance?
I wouldn't know what they mean by new. See, we have 18 presidential candidates today. And I've heard a lot of people say small parties. For me, that's offensive. Why would you refer to any of these political parties as small parties? What you got is certificates. Certificate of return from your party. And again, you are being recognized by INEC. The certificate given to APC today is not better than the one given to National Rescue Movement. It's the same certificate. Same way INEC recognized them, the same way we are being recognized. So what do they mean by big? And so when they talk about big, they're talking about those who have stole so much money and can throw the money anyhow. Is that intelligence? Of course not. So some of this party that is being referred to as smaller party, their candidates have something obsessed to offer because majority of them are youths. You talk about technology, they have it. What it takes to move this country forward, using technology, they have it. And yet they are being referred to as the smaller party. So what I'm saying is this: we have what it takes. If I may also remind you, if we will not forget in a hurry, the former president, Shagari, was a teacher or a lecturer. He has never been a governor before, a senator. He assumed the office as the president of Nigeria. He did well before the coup. And now you want to talk about the former presidents. Yeah, in the military, they can agree that, all right, we'll do what we have to do. As I don't want to get into all that. And now we appoint you as our presidents who are going to rule by decree. Before they became the presidents and they ruled by decree, they were never a president before. So when we talk about no experience, what's experience? It's your common sense and what you know. To be honest with you, I think I'm one among few presidential candidates who has not traveled to London, to UK, to Canada, trying to use the template in Canada to rule this nation. How does that work? Trying to go to UK and have everybody to come down, we are in UK. What are you going there to get? To do what? This is Nigeria. So we know the problem of our country, and any leader or any president who will assume the office as a father, as a parent, knows exactly what to do to solve the problem of this country.
All right, that's fair enough. We've almost run out of time now.
Thank you.
I'll just slip in one quick question. You said something about these candidates that people tend to overlook, having the capacity and the knowledge and all that. And one question that we've got from our viewers is, why don't you people come together? Is that in the works? Can that happen?
No, of course. You see, let me be honest. You see, this election is going to be full of surprises. What we think will happen might not be what we're going to see. You know why? The Almighty God is in the business of this very election. Because like the former president Olusegun Obasanjo used to say, that he felt and believed that God is a Nigerian. He's interested. He knows what to do. Tomorrow is pregnant, my brother. And the pregnancy is heavy. But the only truth is that we don't know what tomorrow is giving birth to. But definitely tomorrow will give birth to something. You see, God is wonderful. He has brought all of us together, 18 presidential candidates. Maybe 3 or 4 are more popular now. But don't rule out the fact that God knows how to bring the last and make him the first, and take the first and push him back to the and making the last. So that we can come together, we can't rule it out.
Right.
We have less than 2 months,
Yes.
or about 2 months thereabouts, but you may never know what will happen among us. My brother, you just have to listen to when this smaller party, according to what they said, but we know we are not small. You just have to listen to where they are when they have their debates. You know that we have what it takes to move this nation forward. That we can collapse our structure, nobody can rule it out. Are we doing that now? Of course not. Are we going to do it tomorrow? Tomorrow is pregnant, only God knows.
All right, thank you very much,
Yes.
Reverend Felix Osakwe.
Thank you.
We do wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we get to talk to you at some other time. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And a big thanks to Captain TV.